Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to our fourth conversation, our community engagement session. As you can read on the slide, our title this evening will be Safe and Caring Schools. I'm Curtis Kane. I have the pleasure of serving as superintendent in the Rockwood School District, and I do want to lower expectations for this evening. If you're here to find out what's going to happen in terms of us being in session for school tomorrow or not, that will not be shared by the close of this evening. So I will just say at this point, stay tuned. So with that, sequenced off. Okay, this has been our ongoing theme for the entirety of the school year, and it speaks to what we've been doing and what we'll continue to do over the course of the school year. We're going to partner to listen. We are going to plan together, i.e. us convening and coming together in this format, and we promise to bring our collective vision, in fact, to life. I have said this at the start of every single one of these presentations, that we have policies, regulations, and planning that all come and work together in the Rockwood School District. Our Board of Education policies give us the what, literally our guardrails. Our regulations provide clarity in terms of the how, but our comprehensive school improvement plan, our strategic plan, will give us the roadmap over the course of the next 5 years, which speaks to the criticality of the work and the conversations that we will be having. So if you go back and you think about this school year, it's amazing how much has actually occurred in the months that we've had so far with the school year. We had a conversation, a detailed one about nurturing learning. Of course, we had another follow-up conversation that focused on fiscal responsibility, highly qualified staff. We took a break. This was back in the fall, took a break, came back in January, had a conversation about highly qualified staff. And we are here this evening to have conversation about safe and caring schools here in the Rockwood School District. Just a picture from our 3 presentations at each one of the other high schools in the Rockwood School District. And of course, we wanted to round out our 4th conversation here and at Marquette High School. So this has been another visual that has spoken to what we are gathering and literally process pieces and components that we've been engaging in, how we're ultimately going to get there, and it will end with the development of our strategies and specific indicators that speak to direction, programming, and ultimately different efforts and initiatives that we'll be having in place as we move forward with this strategic plan. The best way to describe it is it's our compass, right? It is our roadmap to help us guide our work as we move forward in our district. So, briefly, if you could just take just a couple of moments just to introduce yourself to your fellow table mates, your colleagues that are, or not colleagues, depending upon who's seated at the table with you. Just take a moment just to introduce yourself to those that are at the table with you. So thank you for that introduction. I will transition just to a review of the meeting norms that we've had in our district, specifically when it's come to the work of the Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. These were normed by our Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. Literally, our strategic committee itself, our guiding committee itself, normed these norms, and these are the chalk lines that we've been using to guide our conversations at each one of not only our community engagement conversations, but also our steering committee meetings as well. So before we get to school safety, I have a couple of comments that I want to make. There's a reason that safe and caring schools are being bundled together. There's a very purposeful reason behind those facts. The most important thing that we can do when it comes to safety is make sure that each and every one of the over 18,600 students in the Rockwood School District feel as though and know as though they are cared for, they are seen, and they are connected. Every single piece of research that talks about school safety constantly points to the fact that those that feel as though they are isolated begin to go down roads that we simply don't want to travel in our school district. And so they may feel as though they're disconnected. They are much more connected than you may think. So that notion of every student being seen, historically a champion within our schools, for every single student, there is purpose and strategy behind that, but it's about the heart, making sure that every student not just sees it, they feel it, and we'll point to some of that data. The last is this. I know there's a tremendous amount of concern, and it's very much warranted when it comes to safety. We are going to talk about a number of components and different strategies that we have in place within our school district. But there will be pieces that we will not be discussing in open. And it's really simple. It's not to be anything outside of as transparent as we can be, but we violate our safety envelope if there are certain details and specifics that we share. And so this is one where you're going to have to trust what we're doing, the strategy behind it, but there are details that we simply can't discuss for a variety of reasons in public settings. So with that, Dr. Paul Godwin will kick off the first phase of our conversation around school safety.
All right, as Dr. Kane says, there are so many pieces to safety. What we broke it down to was the physical safety, is which I will talk about, and Dr. Hangens will address that social emotional safety. What you'll notice through my presentation is a little more lists of things than it is a lot of explanation, so bear with that. And then obviously Steve will get into a lot more detail about what he's doing. Mine's pretty much self-explanatory. So as we've done in the previous 3 meetings, we're going to talk about what has changed, what have we accomplished, and where are we going. Just for perspective, we found out earlier this year that the state was going to provide districts around the state with money for safety and security upgrades. As you can see by this slide here, we were one of 9 out of the 489 who applied that received $0 when it came to safety and security updates. We have inquired with DESE with not a whole lot of response from that. Despite that, safety and security of all of our students and staff in our community is a top priority. We have a little data here that says, how are we doing? What is the feeling of our students right now? Over the last 3 years, we have an average of 92% feel like they are safe at school. And it's broken down to elementary, high school, and middle school. So overall, that's a pretty positive feeling from our students. It's not 100 yet. So we'll begin with kind of those lists of things. We have our district safety supervisor who was back there, now he's here, actively working with Ty Dennis. We have secured entrances. That means every single one of our buildings, through the course of the day when our students are there, the doors are locked. We have safety film on those front entrances that are ballistic proof. We have entrance barricades and bollards, so again, another safety feature where you're not going to be able to drive a car through the front of a building. We have a visitor management system with School Pass, so we can identify sexual predators. That rings up. If somebody comes in to scan in, we know that information right off the bat. And we also have our required background checks for all of our visitors. And of course, a lot of the work that some of the things that you'll hear are in response to the passing of Prop 3. We have security cameras throughout our district. We have intruder alarms. We have internal locking mechanisms on every single internal door. That is the quickest, fastest way. Should something take place in a building, one simple push of a button, we have secure locations in all of our buildings. We have internal two-way communication for staff members and administration within a school setting. Also with Prop 3, we have our bus safety arms, illuminated arms that go out. It's a new feature that we were actually able to add this school year. In Siren GPS, this is a feature that we received a couple years ago. It is a tool that we use anytime there is a safety or a 911 call in the Rockwood School District. We are notified. We get an alert on our phone that'll tell us the location of it. It'll give us a geofence. It's a fantastic tool where if it says proximity, we know it's within a school area. If it doesn't say proximity, we know that it is something that is taking place at that building. And as you all can imagine, 911 calls happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even when you're sleeping at 2, 3 in the morning. Similar to the Courage to Report calls that also come in and can also add to the length of the evening or lower the amount of sleep that you get in a night. All right, so some things that we have accomplished over the last couple of years. We're in year 2 of our SSOs, our school safety officers. These 4 gentlemen have been a fantastic addition to the Rockwood School District. If you've been around any of our elementary schools, if you've been to board meetings, you will see one of these or multiple of these SSOs that we have. They're fantastic. They are part of our school communities now. They are a staple within the districts, within the school settings that they supervise and monitor. Again, we don't talk about where they are, their schedule. That's part of that safety envelope that Dr. Kane alluded to. They're always about. Even when we don't expect them, they are there. And they are quick with responses. I happened to see, that's a quick side story, somebody came up at one school. I saw Officer Weiss safely turn his vehicle around on 109 in an appropriate manner. I gave him a quick buzz. I said, you were heading one direction, you turn around, what's going on? There was a situation at a school that he flipped on a dime, switched to go help support a school that had a little questionable incident. Again, working with our local municipalities as far as safety, we have consistent signage around all of our buildings that help our first responders if there is a crisis, whether it be fire, medical, or something, unfortunately, if it were to be worse. So this is district-wide, all of our buildings, we have clear signage so everyone knows where they're going in case there is an event. And again, you'll hear more about this, but the relationship that we have with our first responders, they're in our buildings all the time. They probably know the buildings better than some staff members because they have been in and out on foot seeing what's taking place in our school settings. In addition, in the fall, we have an annual crisis workshop where we have district staff members, we have first responders, we have community members, and we are coming together and we are talking about what safety looks like in the Rockwood School District. And we wrap up all of those conversations with scenarios. And we talk through what would we do if. And we have the input from our first responders, and our principals give that school lens on certain things. And so we have real in-depth conversations and brainstorming or suggestions provided to how do we handle situations within our school setting. We have our monthly safety meetings as a district, and also each school also holds their own safety meetings. We actually had one last week that we're still continuing to always work and grow and streamline our processes so they are simple, they're understandable, and everybody's speaking the same language. And that's an area that we're always trying to improve because we can't have one quadrant doing something, calling something this, and another quadrant doing something else. We're working with people from around the district to have that consistent message so all schools know exactly what we're talking about. And we have those drills that you probably remember doing as a child as well, except there's that one called Intruder that's on there now, and we've actually beefed up those drills. It used to be we would do one a semester. Now we do 4 throughout the course of the year. And I know that I can use Marquette as an example. They're actually doing a full-on intruder, run, hide, fight, what would you do if scenario where they've actually called in some additional personnel, whether it be our SSOs or SROs, to come and help facilitate those drills so they can actually go through some live scenarios that can help prepare them in case of an event. Something that we have also been able to do with our school security officers is provide an option-based training with our own people, with our own language, in our own buildings. And that was something that we've heard about over the years is, yes, we can do training here at Marquette, but what happens at Green Pines? What happens at Selvage Middle School? When you're not in your own surrounding, if you're practicing for such a what could be a potential horrible event, you don't have your feet below you. So we are able to provide a train-the-trainer opportunity where those people will go back to their home schools, lead the training in their own space so they can actually see with their own eyes in their own classrooms, in their own space, what would they do should there be an event. We're actually in the midst of now, again, with our own people. We double that train-the-trainer number each year. We started off with 40. We're up to 80, and our SROs and our SSOs are phenomenal. They're working on a 2.0 version of let's get this a little bit more in depth and taking that training to another level. So those are the things that are kind of in the work right now. And again, we talked about run, hide, fight, simple language. I can ask you all this. When you were a child and there was a fire, what were the 3 words that you had to do?
Stop, drop, and roll.
Keep it simple. And so that's the kind of mindset with our intruder training. Also, over the course of the years, we have CERT training, we have stop the bleed training, and hands-on CPR. Those are options that we have for our staff members as well in their own school buildings. This was one of the things that we've added to the agenda each school year. This is my first year in this position, and I was able to sit down with every single building, every single administrator who is in charge of safety, our first responders, Ty over here, and we sat with every single building, looked at every single map of all the schools in our school district, and what do we do if? We talked about rally locations, unification points, all of those pieces so that everyone is hearing the exact same message. It was consistent throughout. We could probably say that speech in our sleep because it was a very repetitive conversation, but it was good for us to get in, talk with those people, and again, that face-to-face interaction with our first responders and our school staff personnel was fantastic. Again, all getting on the same page. Dr. Kane mentioned, we're here for the kids and that relationship of being so connected to them. We're the first line of defense when it comes to supporting our kiddos. This is kind of mirroring that. Our relationship with our first responders is huge. Some foundational work was done before I got into this position, and I'm only trying to grow that, because if we ever have a situation, if we don't have those relationships, that could be a detriment to the safety of all of our folks. With Ty over here and the connections that we do have with our responsibles, with all the different municipalities, it is a very well-oiled machine when it comes to that communication. Whether it be text, phone, a meet in person, we have a lot of systems in place that we communicate across the district in a very timely fashion. So looking forward, obviously Prop 3 was a huge piece of this, where there's going to be continual funding to support the district when it comes to safety and security. We are in the process of purchasing two-way radios, upgrades, so there's a consistent system across all buildings, not one PTO has this, and so this school has something a little better or has more. We have a consistent approach to that process. We are also working on purchasing communication, so our SSOs and Ty and some cabinet level members can communicate across the district without the use of cell phone or self-service. So that tool will be available as well. And our keypad and door monitoring system, those are going to be installed starting this summer with elementary and next year with our middle and high school. So every single door will have a keypad and monitored by video surveillance. So we'll know who is coming and going in each of our buildings at all times. And this one at the very bottom is one I'm probably most excited about moving forward, because when it comes to safety and security, there are just so many avenues and rabbit holes you can go down to when it comes to what's best. So we are actually working with, we put out a bid now to basically have a company help design a system for the Rockwood School District, given the information and the technologies and the spaces that we have. So we don't have to go do the guessing. We have a company that's going to come in and help guide us through that process. So it takes a lot of guesswork out of it, probably help mainstream those things, and there's no sense in spending time and energy down a path that's not going to work for us. They're going to utilize the systems that we already have. So again, that's in the process. In the next actually few weeks, we'll be having those meetings to start aligning some of those systems. That was a lot of lists and not a lot of explanation. That explanation is coming, I promise, about some of those other social emotional pieces. So thinking about all of those lists and those physical safety pieces that we already have in place in the Rockwood School District and that are potentially down the road for us, here's 3 questions that we've been asking our guests during these meetings. What is something you learned that you feel others should know? What else would you like to know in this area of safe and caring schools? And how can Rockwood improve this area? There's a QR code. We'll give you a few minutes to jot down some responses.
I'm Steve Hankins. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services at the Rockwood School District. Always thankful for the opportunity to share the great work the Student Services Department does and our impact on all of our students. A lot of times people ask, what is Student Services? And I say yes. Student Services, as you'll see, will cover a multitude of different avenues. When we think of school, we think of academics, but in order for kids to come here to achieve, there's a lot of needs that need to be met, a lot of other things that arise in their lives that we do our best to partner with families, to partner with sometimes outside agencies to get those kids what they need to succeed. So what has changed? A lot has changed in the last 5 years since this last time we've done our school improvement planning. Some of the more, I guess, pressing changes. Students and families, the number of students and families that we have displaced, which would fall under what's called McKinney-Vento. Sorry, is that better? There we go. Which would be considered under the McKinney-Vento. So basically, it's families that do not have permanent housing. Those continues to be a concern. Our Jacqueline Floyd, who works with social workers, is also our McKinney-Vento coordinator. We work with those families to make sure those kids are getting to school and they have at least a stable place to continue with their education. Also, the number of students that we have who speak a different language, as far as their primary language, is increasing, as well as we call our newcomer students, which is first generation immigrants to our school district. They have a lot of the times different needs than a lot of our students, and so we have a great group of ELL teachers who do wonderful things partnering with those families and getting those students what they need. We also, of course, have seen a rise with students with anxiety, depression, and really just having coping skills to deal with day-to-day life and difficult conversations and challenges. We see the legislation, obviously, the state of Missouri to legalize marijuana. As a result of that, we are seeing the rise of different types of, methods of marijuana being used in schools. It's more of a challenge, and our kids have it more accessible than ever before. Vaping is also continues to be a concern, and I know the school district is doing a community read right now about technology and its impact on our students, but we have definitely seen the impact of social media and technology throughout the schools, especially on our students' mental health. I know if you have, especially teenagers at home, I think you can relate to the impact social media has on them, as well as adults, but it is hard for our kids to escape the school day sometimes because of social media, and it's definitely had a major impact. We're also seeing, there is still ramifications from our health crisis from COVID. It impacted lots of students, and just because it's a few years later does not mean those deficits not only in learning, which we're catching up on and addressing, but also social interactions and other issues that may have arose during that time. We're still trying to help address those. How do we do that? Well, here's my team. The amazing individuals. A few of them here are tonight will speak with you about specifically what their programs entail, and I'll discuss a few others that aren't able to be here tonight. But as you see, if you go through this slide, we not only meet the needs of gifted students. We have Dr. Cassandra Suggs who's here today, who's our Educational Equity and Access. Dr. Jamie Smith, who works with our 504 students and also students with IEPs, and is our liaison with the SSD, a special school district. Matt Berry, who oversees counselors. Michelle Ortwig, who is our preventive and substance abuse prevention and interventionist. We're very lucky in the fact that we have someone dedicated to that here in our district. Amy Ware, who oversees our wonderful nurses. Again, I mentioned Jacqueline Floyd, who is over our social workers, and Sade Pearson, who is over our district behavioral analysts, which again is very unique to this district and provides wonderful supports for our students. And those of you who are in education are probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Usually it was in a pyramid form, but really what we've learned is this. There are certain things kids need to have in order to achieve in a classroom. And if you really look at student services, physiological, safety needs, the feeling of belonging, those are all necessary for our kids to achieve at their highest level. That's really what we support. We also support the academic side of it and help achievement. But for our kids to excel in classrooms, be fully present, we need to help them the best we can to meet those needs. The reality is we can't help meet all their needs to 100%, but the hope is that we can at least make things better for some kids that are struggling, as well as those kids who are not struggling, we can also help them excel. So it's a myriad of resources that we offer. This is unique in that, again, I mentioned Michelle Ortwig, who's our substance abuse prevention and interventionist. She is one of one, really, in the state of Missouri. I think there's a misnomer sometimes. Obviously, I was an assistant principal, a teacher, a coach, as well as a principal here in the Rockwood School District. And sometimes I would hear from families that we don't know there's a problem. That's far from the truth. We understand that drug and alcohol abuse among youth is an issue. It's an issue in every high school. It's an issue in every community. We are fortunate enough to have someone who is an experienced counselor and who works with our students who are maybe struggling with addiction or can walk them through, provides counseling, provides resources for families. We've partnered with the Real Academy. This is a new partnership. It is a school. It's in St. Peters, Missouri. We're hoping they expand closer to us, but right now they're in St. Peters. What this is, it's for those students who are in recovery, who are unable or it would not be healthy for them to return to their high school. Maybe they need more time with sobriety. This allows them to go to a place where they can get daily therapy, as well as stay a Rockwood student and take online courses. This is brand new. Michelle reached out and spoke with them. We went and visited the school. I think it's got a lot of potential, and again, I hope it expands. I think it can do some wonderful things for our kids that are struggling. We also brought in some peer specialists, and so if you understand or have been around recovery, especially with teenagers, the older you get, as far as adults, the less they're likely to listen. And so we partnered with Prevent Ed for some what they call peer specialists. Now, they're not exactly their age. They are young adults who are vetted and going through recovery. They meet with some of our students at Pathways and just have real conversations about them, about the path they went down. I think what's really important to understand, too, for a lot of our students who have drug issues, are in recovery, they've been told all their lives, if you do drugs and you become an addict, your life's over. That is sending a message of hopelessness to kids who are trying to get sober. A lot of these peer specialists have been through that. They've made it to the other side. They've got jobs. They've got careers. And they can say, look, your life's not over. You just need to start making good choices. There could be some doors that are closed that are open for other people, but there's still doors open for you. So it's very positive, and it's very hopeful for those students. She's also looking at a partnership with the American Lung Association. Spoke of the issue with vaping to provide education for students one-on-one or in group settings on how to quit and what it does to your body. A lot of times kids think vaping is not a big deal until they start seeing or talk to a doctor who says, there's what your lungs look like, and here's the long-term effects, and that sometimes could have some, hopefully, impact. But more than anything else, as in trying to quit vaping, nicotine, as well as any other drug, it's giving them strategies to quit, and hopefully that'll help. Hopefully some of you went to one of our community outreaches. We partnered with the DEA, and they came in and did community at 3 different schools, hiding in plain sight, where they educate parents on what to look for in their kids' basically their kids' bedrooms for signs of drug use. They also discussed fentanyl and the impact of fentanyl. We also continue to be an active member with community partners in prevention. As I mentioned, we're very lucky to have Dr. Jamie Smith. She is unbelievable at her job. She partners with our SSD, with our special school district partners, and also what people don't realize, we do have pre-kindergartner, and those students sometimes need special services, and that is something that Rockwood handles and not the special school district. So she is the liaison with that and helps with that. One of the biggest things she also works with is our 504 population. So 504s, if you're not familiar, that is it could be any kind of a disability, mental, physical, that interferes with a life activity. And so we partner with those families, identify what the issues are, sit down with who we need to in the schools, and determine what kind of accommodations those students may need. to even the playing field. That's all they're looking for, an even playing field. So this can run from concussions. It can, a kid has a concussion. It could be for 3 or 4 weeks while they try to recover from a concussion, or it could be a health matter to where a kid is maybe diabetic, and they need to. They have episodes where maybe they're ill and they need extra time on tests. It could be a myriad of ADHD, anxiety, depression. Really, it's just a way to help those kids meet their fullest potential. Jamie's done an excellent job. We've recently brought along another facilitator to help facilitate the 504s because we want to keep them consistent to make sure that we're being equitable across the district on how we're implementing 504s and those resources we're offering those families. This has been very helpful. It's also, we want to make sure, quite honestly, that we're following the state law, the paperwork. And it's a lot to follow, and they do a wonderful job. But if you see it, it has continually increased since I've been in administration. But these are the numbers currently for this year. Nurses are probably one of the most beloved people in any building. And we have an amazing group of nurses. Over 50% are nationally board certified. Numerous of them, of our nurses are not only involved in their state and national organization, but they have leadership roles. Unbelievably professional. But they also do a great job of making sure our kids are staying compliant. Our vaccination compliancy in the district is well above state average. When we also discuss and make sure parents know they do have options, but it's talking about those with those parents and making sure we're following state law. And when they've done an excellent job maneuvering that and keeping through that. They screen students for vision, for hearing, and probably here we can look by the numbers. We all know kids who have tummy aches, who aren't feeling well, whether they're really not feeling well or if they're homesick. Our nurses do an excellent job of talking with those kids, giving them some TLC, and getting them back to class. Because we need them in class, but also assessing whether or not, if they have a fever, they need to go home. But sometimes they have a tummy ache. Now that's on the light side of it. Our nurses also have to deal with crisis situations, whether that's with staff or with students. A lot of times they are the first responder, obviously in the building, and they're interfacing with EMS and fire when they come to our buildings. Very helpful as far as getting that information to EMS about any issues with the students or with that adult. We are very grateful for our nurses and the work they do. They are a lot of times also the de facto kind of a doctor in your office, in your building. Hey, I've got an earache. Mind if you look in my ear? Which I've done before. And like, no, it doesn't look like an ear infection to me. Not that they're doctors, but they provide a lot of help like that, though, just to be there for our staff and our students. Cubs is another unique, and this, if your phones will work, that QR code does work, and it gives you plenty of graphs and information. So our behavior analysts are just that. They're scientists. And we have a group of them who partner with teachers who go into classrooms. So students who are struggling, usually obviously with behaviors, they will go in, and the idea is to change the environment so that kid can be successful. And it's really a different way of looking at things. It's not, let's change the kid. The kid is a kid. Let's change the environment. What are things the teacher can do? What are some things we can arrange that will get the kid to feel comfortable, feel like they belong? They do a wonderful job. It's scientific. They observe. They come up with strategies. They work with the teacher. It could be one-on-one with the kid. It could be a complete class. It could be entire grade levels, or it could be working with, for instance, bus drivers, with adults as far as how do you handle behaviors on a bus. We're very lucky to have them. They do a wonderful job. And their numbers really are only capped by their capacity, meaning they've got wait lists sometimes of people who would like them to come in, and also they're hard to find as far as just like certain teaching positions. When we have vacancies, those positions are hard to find, but they do a wonderful job and have had a tremendous impact of one of the graphs. If you did pull up that QR code, it shows kids that may have been on a track for maybe an IEP for behavior, and through their intervention, the student was able to go a different route and not have to go through those services. But sometimes they will go through and do observations, do a behavior assessment, and that also does help special school district with determining if the student does need an IEP. So we work hand in hand with them. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Jacqueline Floyd to discuss social workers.
My name is Jacqueline Floyd, and I am the supervisor for the social work department. And so Dr. Hankins did a really great job of talking about kind of the why behind why social work is important. Like, why do we have social work positions? And it is to help our students be able to access their educational needs so they can have whatever that looks like for them, so they can come in the door ready to learn. And so for us, what we tie all of our work in is under 3 standards. And so on this page, we have the first 2. And so that's promoting a school climate and culture that is conducive to student learning and teacher excellence, and then providing evidence-based education, behavior, and mental health resources. So everything that we do as a department aligns under these 2 areas and then one other area that's on our other slide. And so I wanted to kind of grab some of the key points as to what is a social worker's role. And so I kind of highlighted those here. So the first one is crisis intervention or safety planning. So per our policy and regulation, we have something called a student suicide protocol, and that is how we support students who are expressing suicidal ideation, thoughts, plans, or intent. And so as of February 4th of this school year, we have completed 326 of those throughout our entire school district from K through 12. And so there are 3 different forms, and that's kind of indicated there. Additionally, those tools that we use are done by our school counselors, our school social workers, and our building administrators and our school nurses. So this is not something that is housed solely in my department, but I did want to outline it as something that we really do focus on and kind of how we're supporting the students' well-being. Second to that would be that mental health support, education, and skill building. That looks like that kind of day-to-day when a kid is coming in a social worker's office and we're working through whatever it is that we're working through, whether that's we lost our housing, whether that's I don't have a place to go when I leave here at school, or I'm having anxiety about being in class, or struggles with friends, or kind of like whatever brings that student into that social work support that looks like that individual or small groups. We had a really great group this year that one of my elementary social workers did for kindergarten readiness. And so we had a group of kindergartners who were kind of struggling with, coming to kindergarten and being ready to, sit in class and do what they need to do. And so there was several weeks that a social worker met with those kids and really honed in on those skills. And so the teachers have indicated, like, yes, this has been a really great positive outcome for us, for that intervention for those kids. And then McKinney-Vento, I know Dr. Hankins spoke a little bit about what that is. So that is a federal law that protects homeless students, their right to remain enrolled in the school district where they were residing at the time that they became homeless. With Rockwood School District, on average, we average about 200 students that are McKinney-Vento at any given time, which I think for some, that's a shocking number to hear because you don't think about Rockwood School District and think about that. That is a very true reality of what it is in our community. So as of today, we have about 158 students that are qualified under McKinney-Vento, and at 60 students that were qualified at some point this year that are no longer. So those numbers literally fluctuate day to day. I can have 5 families drop off and 10 families join. So that is not a stagnant number. It really is fluent. But as of today, that's kind of the most up-to-date numbers for you. And then obviously there's a lot of other ways we partner with teachers, with admins, with school teams. We look at everything from how to help a student have better attendance to how do we help a student feel confident to come to school and learn. So it's a variety of ways that social workers support. Oh my gosh, I didn't even talk about the pictures. I gotta go back. So this first picture up here, that is April Welsh. She is our high school social worker at Eureka High School, and she won the Cornerstone Award for this year. So it was very exciting. We had there's some SPED social workers in there, and we also had social workers come over and just surprise her and celebrate. And then at the bottom here, this picture is about professional development. So that particular professional development was around the developmental cycles of human beings. So what does it normally look like for an elementary student versus what does it normally look like for a high school student? And so that's a picture there, so you can see that learning happening. And then the third standard that we align under is maximizing access to school-based and community-based resources. So when you think about school social workers, often you think about that home-school community linkage. So we are partnering with community providers, we are connecting families to them, we are building those relationships within our buildings, and then finding all those ways to support families. So that can look like a variety of different things, from holiday programs, holiday wishes, turkey food drives, to like basic, I have nowhere to go, here is some housing resources, shelter resources, or even youth shelters. So that is really kind of encompassing all that area there. We also collaborate. I always like to, anytime I get a chance, I like to talk about 3 great programs that we have, which is we have Rockwood Gives Back, we have The Giving Place, and we have Got Your Backpack. And so those are 3 great programs that the social work department supports. We certainly did not create those. Those are created by previous board members, teachers, anyone who has kind of identified a need in that area. But we certainly do utilize those collaborative relationships to support families. So we support families through some financial means. We support families through having access to basic things like toilet paper, shampoo, conditioner, those things. And then we have a food backpack program. So wonderful. And then I would wrap up with something that we started doing last year as a department. We found that it's hard when we're talking about confidential things to capture to stakeholders, which are you, what it is that we do. And so what we started doing is collecting something that's called use of time. And so we collect data, randomized throughout the school year, tracking how a social worker spends their day. And so I have that cataloged in a variety of different ways. And so as of February 4th, that 74% is how, 74, 18, and 8% is how social workers are spending their time. So 74% is either doing something directly with a student or directly on behalf of a specific student. So that can look like those interventions, that group work, or even like meeting and collaborating with teams around how we support kids. So it can look like all of that. 18% is program development. So that could look like I am going to put together an ACT lab around that kindergarten readiness group, or I'm going to put together something that's a PD for staff, whatever that looks like, or building community relationships and collaborations. And then 8% is school duties. So that looks like lunch duty, hall duties, morning, afternoon duties, all the things that make students feel safe and schools run. So that is me. And I'm going to give it back to Steve.
Another very important group that we have is school counseling, school counselors. After probably hearing from Jacqueline, you probably like, well, don't school counselors do some of that too? They do. It's just social workers are more on the partnering with outside communities and also looking at more of a wider range of more of the, I guess, the social home life aspect, where counselors, they do talk with kids, they do help kids through things. They teach about academic mindsets and behaviors, as well as social skills, but they also do the academic side of it, where they help them get ready for their upcoming classes, maybe talk through plans in their future. We have college and career counselors who help students prepare for their next phase after high school, whether that's college or military or trade school. And we have lots of options. Matt Berry does a wonderful job with our school counselors. His mission, the school counseling department's mission is that all students will be valued and provided results-based instruction in their areas of career, academic, and personal social development through a comprehensive school counseling program as they acquire skills, abilities, and attitudes that empower them to be lifelong contributing members of society. And this is really, we get into a multi-tiered support system. You'll hear it called MTSS. It's really looking at what are those services that our counselors can provide to help students with a lot of times what we consider soft skills, getting through adversity, grit, or if it's I'm anxious, how do I get through that? Or how do I navigate, sometimes how do I navigate talking to an adult? How do I self-advocate? They do a wonderful job working with kids, but also they teach lessons. We've been, the middle school recently added ACT Lab to their schedule, which has been beneficial because middle school counselors now can run small groups and work with individual students to teach those social and academic skills. We've also, our elementary counselors work with individuals in small groups to also build those social and academic skills. They've also added what they call peace walks in all elementary buildings, and so it's really a tool for kids to learn how to resolve conflict peacefully. And really it's on that could be in a playground or you can actually roll it out, but it's steps, and as kids take a step closer to each other, there's tasks they do. It's been very effective, and it's great. It's just one tool that our counselors use. Recently, we've made sure that we've got the same curriculum for our counselors and for our kids throughout the elementary schools. So with Second Steps, we'll have that for the next several years for teachers to provide, and it's digital, so it's very accessible and it's very easy for teachers. We found that if something is accessible and easy to use, it's more likely to be used because teachers are very busy. And so if we can add something and ask them to do something as far as the social emotional piece, we think that'll actually not only help in the classroom, but it makes it more accessible for them to get it done. The academic mindsets and behaviors is really what, as a district, we're focusing on. What are those mindsets? What are those behaviors? What, as a district, do we want our kids leaving our schools being able to do and being a productive citizen? There are 36 Rockwood academic mindsets and behaviors. I'm not going to go over all of them, but our counselors work to help students through those. Also, we recently added School Links, and this is really a part of a platform that allows our kids 6 through 12 to start planning for their future. Again, that's also one of those pieces that we want to teach our kids that, yes, you need to plan, look forward, have goals, and this helps. I brought Mr. Glenn Hancock to discuss School Links. He's been instrumental with implementing this program and helping with other counselors.
Thank you. Yep, got the lapel. Thank you. Glenn Hancock, working in our Research, Evaluation, and Assessment Department. Probably more famously known for the guy that makes the students do the MAP and STAR testing out there. And sending the STAR parent letters home. A lot of times you may have seen those. But we actually worked with Matt Berry, Dr. Shelley Willott, about a year and a half ago. We met with a focus group of students from each high school. Those students that were interested in 2-year, 4-year, military, other training programs, trade school, after high school, to really learn what more can we do to support post-high school to help you out. And we learned a lot that experience is really varied for each of our students, depending on which high school they went to and maybe some of the programs that they were made aware of or the information they received. And so one of the things we learned was School Links was an opportunity to have a program that would allow students to begin to put their career paths, to begin to explore what careers are out there, learn about the colleges, universities, and it was a place where they were able to learn about themselves as well. So through School Links, they're taking interest-based surveys to learn about their interests that then lead to what possible careers connect to those interests, that lead to what type of schooling is necessary in there. In addition to those, it also allows them to connect to high school courses that might help them get a little exploratory information about that path, if you will. And it's been very beneficial. Just so you can see the stats on the screen that we had. So far, we've had 88% of our students, 8th through 12th, have visited School Links this year, meaning they've logged in, they've taken some type of interest inventory to begin learning a little bit about themselves, and 85% of our students have set a career goal, so meaning they've explored what career options are possibly out there and set an initial career goal. Doesn't mean they can't change it. That's the wonderful thing about School Links is we offer opportunities to create 4-year plans, and each year they'll get an opportunity to visit it. Maybe they took a course and was like, I was interested in that. Now I learned a little bit more. I want to explore something else. So that kind of ongoing plan allows them to continue to evaluate different opportunities that are out there. So you'll see more information coming out about School Links. We sent this year was our, excuse me, we sent, I think in January, we sent codes for parents to be able to log in, and they can also kind of see what the students are able to see in terms of careers exploration, college, university exploration in there. And we'll continue to provide additional information for when your students are exploring or when you're wanting to support them when they're exploring as well. Dr. Hankins touched on academic mindsets and behaviors that lead a little bit to our social-emotional learning survey that we do. So one of the things that we do twice a year here in Rockwood is we provide a social-emotional learning survey. We do that in the fall and again in the spring to really get the student perception of where they're at in regards to academic mindsets and behavior. So some of the attributes that we measure, these are our domains that we measure up here through student self-perception, such as social support, responsible decision-making, teacher-student relationships. These are all mindsets and behaviors, skills that support the learning environment that can really, in a lot of cases, this is our first line of defense in terms of having a safe and collaborative environment, that if we're monitoring these, we're helping students talk about feelings, talk about their emotions, strategies to deal with stress, and they feel like they're very equipped with dealing that, it can diffuse a lot of situations maybe before they happen. This next screen shares a little bit about just our fall results. So again, we give this twice a year, fall and spring. The domains are listed at the top, and they might be hard to see from the back, but essentially it provides the percent of students who are responding favorably for each domain. At our elementary level, we have 6 domains that we assess on our survey, and in our secondary schools, we have 7 domains we assess. Each circle is color-coded with a green, yellow, or red. A green means that 85% of our students or more are responding favorably. A yellow means we're between 80 and 85% responding favorably, and if it's red, it means it's below 80. In a lot of cases, you see, I think there's 2 or 3, without turning my head, there's about 2 or 3 reds up here, and they're roughly between 74% and 79% are responding favorably in there. So there's still areas or opportunities we have for growth right now, and we share this information with our schools and also our department leads so they're aware of this information as well. We also compare it, so there's a little, and again, hard to see from the back, but there's a little triangle that's either pointed up or down, and it compares to our prior survey. So we can compare these results back to our prior spring survey, which our spring, actually we saw some of the highest results we've seen in a long time from our students. If there's a dash, it just means there wasn't any change from last spring. We're going to give the survey, the SEL survey again this spring, and we will again do a comparison. Have we seen any change, or what change have we seen from fall to spring just in this current school year? And then again, we'll also share that information as well out this year. Some of the items that let me back up. On our survey, within each domain, there are 3 to maybe 8 questions. And so we roll those questions up to provide a single domain score. That's what you saw on those circles here on this screen. And then when we look at each question, we do see some commonalities in terms of each question. What are some questions that don't have as the same favorable responses, and which one are our highest favorable responses? So just for a brief example, at the elementary level, almost all of the K2 through K through 2 students surveyed felt like the teacher likes them, so they felt a sense of belonging in their school. 97% of all elementary students surveyed feel like they have friends at school. So again, fostering that collaborative environment. Some areas that we noted support, for example, the elementary level, 2 out of 5, 3 through 5th grade students report have a difficult time avoiding distractions. Well, we all do probably a little bit in there. 17% of K through 2 students surveyed do not feel ready to come to school each day. So the survey is not designed to be diagnostic, but it is a way to provide, hey, this is an area we might want to learn a little bit more about. So sometimes schools will have focus groups with students to learn a little bit more about these particular areas, or use these questions in their focus groups as well. At the high school, some of the positives that we're seeing on a regular basis, 92% of students surveyed they have friends at school, 89% of students surveyed report they believe they can do most things if they try, so a good positive trait there. 1 out of 3 students surveyed they're unsure, don't feel their successes are celebrated. 35% of students surveyed are unsure, don't feel they can explain feelings to others. So again, some of these components in terms of self-awareness, responsible decision-making, we're seeing strengths, and then we're also seeing some areas that we have opportunities to grow. And again, we continue to look at these after each survey result to see what are some trends that we're seeing within, not just overall on each domain, but just within each survey question as well. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn over to Dr. Denny Rhodes to discuss gifted education.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, how are you all doing? I'm Denny Rhodes, I'm the Director of Gifted K through 12 here in Rockwood. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, give you an overview of the program itself, see what's happened in recent years, and then actually just give you an idea of some things that have changed recently. So as a program, we actually service 13.6% of the Rockwood population. So of our students, that's 2,619 students of the entire district. You may go, that seems like a lot for a gifted program. You know, if you look at it from the state perspective, gifted programs usually look at for about 5% of the population. We are in an exceptional community as far as Rockwood goes. If we actually have the highest cutoff for gifted services for our various assessment areas of any program other than the exceptionally gifted programs here in the St. Louis area. And even with the highest cutoff of any district in the area, we still service a higher percentage than any other district in the state. It's one of those things where we just have a phenomenal community, and so we have a lot of high-performing students and families, and so that's one of the reasons why our percentage looks the way it does. We offer services K through 12. We have 3 different models that we actually utilize to cover the K through 12 services. At the elementary level, we use a center-based model. Students come from their home schools 1 day a week, and they're there for the entire day and receive targeted gifted interventions on that day. If you look at the way that's broken down, that right now, as of the beginning of 2nd semester this year, we're at 1,244 students that we service out of the elementary population for the course of the week. That is 15.6% of the elementary population. Whenever we look at middle school is we have a specialized class called Stretch that's built into their schedule. It meets every other day, and at their school, we service 13.8% of the middle school population. And then at high school, our gifted model is what's called the advisory role. And an advisory role is we have gifted specialists in the building that actually work and meet with students to help with a myriad of different things, such as executive functioning gaps, how to find clubs or find or to prepare for assessments for college, work with how to self-advocate, how to actually improve peer-to-peer relationships. A lot of things that, if you look at the research, gifted students can actually struggle with. And so that's actually what our high school gifted advisory role, our gifted teachers do as part of their advisory role. In the last 3 years, our gifted population has actually increased. That coincides with a redesign of our identification criteria that we put in place 3 years ago. The idea that we put into place is, and that's even after revising it, we still have the highest cutoffs. But the idea behind revising it was trying to find students in ways that maybe our traditional way of screening may have missed them. And I can guarantee you that we are still missing students, even with the redesign that we've done. So actually right now we have a committee put in place, And we're redesigning our identification process again, looking at how the program itself is actually broken down. If we step back then and go, okay, what happens whenever they are identified as gifted, and we look at the curriculum that's actually utilized in K through 8, our curriculum is based all on real-world problem solving. The reason why is because research would state that gifted individuals actually learn very well whenever they can become invested in the learning. Part of the way to make it invested is to make it real world and actually relevant to them. So that's actually what we actually work on. Tying in also one of the other large aspects that you won't see in the slides, but that we do in gifted is actually whenever Dr. Hankins actually referenced Maslow's pyramid. If you look at step 3 in being belonging, research would actually say that gifted individuals have a tendency to feel isolated and different from peers. So with the gifted program, especially with the way it works with a center-based model, actually brings students at similar aptitude levels and allow them to actually realize that there are other kids like them out there and work on that sense of belonging. It's not just about the achievement aspect, so it's a multi-tiered aspect whenever we actually look at what we're trying to accomplish. Whenever I talked about we grew over the last 3 years, if we actually look in our identification process we put in place in 21-22, at the time, if I look at the graph on the top left, sorry, I'm looking at the screen, that doesn't really help you hear me. If you look at the graph in the top left, it actually references where our populations were at the beginning of the year. Gifted population, and this is at the elementary level. The reason I focused on the elementary level as far as population goes is because we have about 98% of our identification happens at the elementary ages. At the beginning of the year, when the first year of implementation for this new process that we put into place, we were about 688 students for the course of the week. Beginning of this year, we were at 1,045 students at the beginning of this year. We're currently at 1,244 after identification goes on through this year. We'll be starting another round of identification here, well, this week. So you can see we're definitely on an upward trajectory. If we actually look at a year-to-year comparison, just in a simple line graph, just showing how populations have grown, looking at the fourth quarter numbers. And what that's actually equated to is if we actually look at the number of sections, so classes that we have that are at or over the DESE recommended class size. In 21-22, whenever we put this model into place, we had 0 sections that were at or over at the elementary level, at or over the DESE recommended class size. And as of right now, we're at 21 sections at or over the DESE recommended class sizes. And honestly, if you look at our building and you come there, it's one of those things where we are fully packed. We're happy to be fully packed, and we're glad to take on as many students as we can. But it's just a lot of students, which is great. Other things that have changed recently. Last year, we worked, Dr. Hankins and myself worked together to actually create and pass Rockwood School District Policy 2545, which clearly defines the gifted assessment appeal process. So if a student goes through the identification process and a parent has a question or wants to appeal the outcome of that, they actually have a clarified and board-approved policy to actually go through that process. One of the other things that we put into place is our district has a curriculum newsletter that goes out weekly. We actually started last year having a gifted section that actually works as a resource for all of our general education teachers to actually have either tips to actually help support them in the classroom on how they can support gifted students, or to actually also push out some information just when nomination or referral timelines are coming up. And that was something new. Something else that we put into place was what we called CCL Around Town, which CCL is our elementary part of the program. It stands for the Center for Creative Learning, if you're not familiar. The CCL Around Town, we do 3 to 4 events per year at around different parts of the district, just trying to build that community piece. Since kids from all around the district come to us, it's one of those things where we try to push out and have weekend events in the different parts of the district just to try to build that sense of community. One of the things we also have done recently was we have PE, but it's called Connections. It's sort of like critical thinking movement lab, more than a traditional PE class. And so that we actually moved to biweekly, meaning that students go every other week as opposed to every week, just due to classroom sizes and making sure we could actually still offer the highest level of service that we can. Something else that we put into place was that all 6 middle schools in the stretch component or stretch portion of the gifted program have common curriculum that they're teaching. That's something that had not been in place before, and we actually moved to doing that. We still have some caveats built in to where each school can actually have what's called a student response units. So if their students are really into something, the teacher can actually create some units. It's still tied back to standards that we utilize. That way it does actually align with what it is we're trying to accomplish within the gifted program. One of the other things we pushed out this year at all 4 of our high schools is our high school gifted resource teachers started offering ACT Lab sessions at the high schools, and there's all kinds of things being offered for kids, and it's not only the gifted kids. There are kids, whether they're gifted or not, are invited to the ACT Lab sessions, but they do all kinds of different kinds of supports, whether it's test prep, whether it's sounds sort of strange, basket weaving. At one of our schools in particular, our high school gifted resource teacher is actually Native American, and so she actually was teaching some traditional basket weaving. So whenever I said basket weaving, you always sort of crack a joke about basket weaving, but there was a reason for the basket weaving. It was actually just a cultural aspect. A couple of other things that have changed is that we have started is that Missouri actually rolled out what were called Missouri Gifted Learner Outcomes. And so we've actually worked on implementing the Missouri Gifted Learner Outcomes from DESE into our grade through 8 curriculum. We've also worked on creating forward-facing documents of all of our curriculum for families. Grades 6 through 8 have been posted. They're still in draft form, so they are being revised. K through 5, we're working on posting those. And once again, I reiterated that grades 6 through 8 actually have shared units taught at all 6 of the middle schools. And I think that's everything for me. And I'll hand it off to Dr. Cassandra Suggs.
His name was Mr. Clark. He wore a jumpsuit that was gray with stripes. It was faded with oil stains and worn out. He made sure meticulously that the parking lot was cleaned from ice, from snow, from vomit. It didn't matter. He was out there every day cleaning. He had 2 hats. He had a hat that was cloth that kind of looked like an engineer's hat, someone who drove a train engineer's hat, locomotion. And then he had a fur hat that was leather in the middle and fur around the sides. He would greet us every day the same way. Good morning, scholars. Welcome to school. There was 150 of us at this small school that I attended when I was kindergarten through 4th grade. And Mr. Clark was there every single day, unassuming, quietly doing his work, picking up trash, always had a smile. He made sure every one of us, all of us, felt like we belonged. You know, to be honest, back then I really didn't pay much attention to Mr. Clark in terms of being a human being, someone with maybe a family, aspirations. He was just there every day, like the teachers were, like the principal, but different. At the end of every year, it was so hot in those Chicago summers. I mean, you could feel the heat coming from the asphalt, and Mr. Clark would be out there sweating, and he rolled this huge bin out with these wonderful presents that were wrapped in newspaper. We were like, one of these definitely billionaire benefactors have donated again 2 toys to every child, 300 toys. You couldn't peek, you just had to reach in and grab 2 toys. And then you went to the side and everyone opened them at the same time. Kindergartners, 8th graders, wait your turn and open them. One special rule, don't leave that newspaper on the ground for Mr. Clark to have to clean up. Do your part. So we waited, we did our part, and then we'd rip open those toys. And Mr. Clark stood idly by waiting to see if people would put their things in the trash. Occasionally he'd have to remind us. We put them all in there, he'd roll it away, and he was off to sweep hallways or clean up while we played with those toys. It wasn't until my 4th grade year, the time we opened all the toys again in the summer, barely saying thank you to somebody, some millionaire man or woman, that our principal gave an announcement. And he said, Mr. Clark is retiring. This is his last summer with us as we end the school year. And you know, it made me a little sad. I didn't think much about it. I just thought, wonder what retiring means. Mr. Clark quietly stood up and said, thank you all. That's all he said. And then the principal stopped him and said, nope, Mr. Clark, we're going to thank you. We wondered, what for? And he said, you know, every year I was told not to say this, but now I am. those presents that are wrapped so neatly in newspaper, every year for the last 25 years, came from Mr. Clark. What? This man could not have made a ton of money. He most certainly didn't have the finest clothes, but he spent the time letting his resources feed us, that we felt like we belonged. Some kids, that may have been the only toys they got all year. He quietly gave to us every year with his cleaning, with his smiles, with his consistency, and with his money. Because he wanted us all to feel we belong. That's what Rockwood staff does. Every day, quietly, working, central office, custodians, our teachers, our building leaders. You're like Mr. Clark, you show up. And we thank you for that, because you work with all children. When I took this role, Dr. Kane and Dr. Hankins told me, it's about all kids. All means all. Dr. Kane said, in every language, all means all. But the Spanish told us, don't know what it is in French, help me out if you know, but it's all. And so I'm really thankful to be the Director of Educational Equity and Access. We have a wonderful leader in Dr. Hankins, very collaborative, very supportive. We have an awesome team. He talked about them out there, but they are magnificent. Like, we help each other out no matter what. Someone calls, it's done. And we have all of you. And so quickly, I'm going to go through what we do in our department, which we touch every facet of the district, which is so amazing to me. We literally touch every facet. I love that. Meet me in St. Louis. We've added some health components to that. You know, the nurses are coming. Thank you for that. They're doing immunizations, taking blood pressure. We have Rockwood Gives Back that comes. We have so many opportunities. We give away free books, backpacks, so many things going on at Meet Me St. Louis. And we've changed it this year. We're going to be at Queenie Park indoors, because a little birdie told me that, you know, what happens when it rains? They asked me that question. The little birdie is somewhere in the back there, and I thought, ooh, what does happen? Because we lose all of our deposit. So we moved it indoors for going forward. We have our parent team, REPAC, RSAC, Rockwood Staff of Color. We have our regional cohort meetings with the people who have my position across the region. We have our EEA and special education walks. We've been walking these playgrounds in the school, finding out areas that we could improve. We did as you know, the pathway so that our students that are in wheelchairs can get out and play. We also added a lift at Baldwin with facilities. Mighty facilities team added the lift. We just were involved in helping to get that process started. And then we do our on-site school visits. I'll go in and meet with the parents. Thank you for calling on us. I was just here at Marquette recently, seeing a wonderful student. Any way that we can support. We have our puppet show. Yes, that's where little Dr. Kane was born. And now raised, apparently, he has changed a little bit. I see you back there scratching your head, big Dr. Kane. We have our puppet shows with special guests. It's always a lot of fun. Yes, Ms. Romberg was there with being a puppet. So is Lyndon Yet. Thank you so much for coming. We love that. We have our high school freshman orientations, our student groups where we go in and meet with students for various reasons. Our Billy Mayo Award's been going on for years, certainly nothing that we created. And that's $500 to a student in the big program that's going off to college. And then we collaborate with our elementary schools. We were told that they have snack time in elementary, and there were times when kids just sat there with no snack. And we said, we can't do that. So now our department offers every elementary snacks. You get to go on and pick out from Sam's. We have big boxes. There's a variety to choose from, probably 16 different boxes you can choose from. We have it delivered to the school, so every child gets a snack. I did have a caveat on that you can't, please don't use this punitive. Please don't say, well, you weren't behaving today, you can't have a snack. My thing is they could be hungry and misbehaving, so everyone gets a snack that doesn't have one, and we can discuss if there's some behavior issues a little bit later. Book fair access for all, really excited that's going on right now. All the middle schools, all the elementaries that have book fairs, which they all do. We realize there are some kids that say, I just don't want to go to the book fair. Well, they don't have the money. So all means all. So through our EEA We Find a Way grant, we give money to those schools. Every school this year, I'm happy to say, over $3,600, thank you, Steve, for approving that, free books to those children. So every single child gets a book. Talk about the data Glenn talked about. We're trying to close that gap. We want kids to feel like they're a part of the community. We don't want them to invest into their reading so they can close those scores as well. And then we talked about the grant. We've given over 100 grants. My gosh, it's just growing. The word is getting out there, whether it's a school that needs a school bus with a lift on a field chair, on a wheelchair lift on a field trip, if students need some help going on a field trip. It's anything and just about everything. We've given grants for so many things. Thank you to the Communications Department for coming out and covering a lot of the grants that we've done. It's wonderful. We love to tell stories about the good things going on in Rockwood. It's so important to push into the community how great our district is. And then we have our college night. We did that at Queenie Park in collaboration with the high schools. That was phenomenal. Our CSIP Building Goal collaborations. Thank you, Shelley Willott, for inviting me to be a part of that. We go into the buildings and we help the building leaders to just look at their goals, formulate them, and then answer questions they may have. And it's just a wonderful process. We get to know them a little bit better, and they get to get the support that they need. We have our equity ambassadors. They're going through the dignity and belonging, which Steve will talk a little bit more about, but then they're taking back to their prospective buildings information that they've gained. And then we have our podcast. We have awesome podcasts. Thank you, Communication, for entering into a contest. We did win something. We won an award, so we're excited about that. And Dr. Kane has appeared a couple of times. He does get the most hits, I must say, when he comes. So it's an awesome time to just have guests on. If you want to be one of our guests, let us know. It's a lot of fun, and it's just another way to get into the community and let them see us in more of a natural state. Then we have our monthly newsletter. If you have not on our list, let us know. We'd like to send that to you. We have fun with the newsletter. We ask you to please send us ideas and things that are going on in your buildings and in your lives so we can put in a newsletter. I know Rachel Johnson sends us things all the time. We love it. She made sure we had something Black History Month. Gotcha, Rachel. We did that. But we're going to cover all the months. Everything that's going on, we want to hear about it. So new teacher orientation, thank you, Carrie, for involving us in that as well. We really enjoy being able to present for all the new teachers and letting them know that we are available to assist. And then in Dignity and Belonging Consulting, of course, that came here through Dr. Kane a couple years ago. Brilliant. It's been received 100% positive feedback. We've gotten nothing negative about it. It's a phenomenal opportunity for us to learn about making sure everyone feels like they belong and that this is the place for them. That's staff and students. So really excited about that. You'll find out more in just a little bit. But that started just a couple years ago, and Dr. Hankins and I have been working with John Cronapple and his company, and it's just growing, and it's been phenomenal. And then we have our conflict resolution sessions. So out of our department, we trained over 300 staff on how to have successful conversations, because conflict happens. It's normal, it's natural, but how do we deal with it? And how do we also take that back to our classrooms and to our buildings? So we've done group sessions called Successful Conversations. I like to call it Successful Conversations, but since I work for the district, I have to call it Successful Conversations, but you all know, wink, wink, it's really successful. And then there's an opportunity, we've worked with the transportation department with that as well. Thank you, Human Resources, for just being a valuable partner with us with all of that. And it's a great opportunity just to help with communication skills. Nothing more, nothing less. We also come into buildings and we do sometimes successful conversations with staff, sometimes with students. So it just carries on and on and on. And we are the only district that offers that, really. And it's a great saver in terms financially. I don't see Dan Steinberg here, but don't see him. But anyway, for the district, because if you were to hire a consultant to come in and do that for you for $300, it would cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's a great opportunity for us. Really love it. Kate Moore helps us out with some of the scenarios. So you all know about those. We've had a great fun with that. She's a trooper for sure. So that's our department. We love what we do. It is a joy every morning. I wake up. I am never, ever, ever regretting to be here. I love the people I work with. I have so many wonderful friends here, whether it's Glenn breaking down data in the most fun way. We got to do our data daily again, Glenn. It should be backed by popular demand. Or working with the teachers or any of you, I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you about our department. Please reach out and let us know how we can help. Steve Hankins.
So looking forward, some of the things that we are looking to do is continue to increase our 504 support and management for students, staff, and families. We'd like to focus on Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports for students. For those of you, really that is before it's more intense intervention with students, whether that's academic or social emotional. So the more support and more skills we can provide students before they get to that point, the better. So we're really focusing on getting those staff members and that curriculum to students at an early age, elementary and especially middle school. We're also we want to work with our school counselors, our social workers, our CUB, special ed, drug prevention, 504 coordinators, nurses, gifted education, our whole department, because when you are helping a student, there are many avenues in which that student may need help. It may not just be academic, and so we bring the team together to really look at hopefully a systematic approach to meet the needs of those students. We're also going to be reviewing and assessing our support services. We will also want to review and assess the needs of our gifted program. and determine what next steps we need as a district to provide the best possible services for those students. We also want to continue to provide support for students struggling with addiction and substance abuse and help their families. We want to continue to partner with outside agencies to support students and families. We want to increase awareness and opportunities for students, post-secondary plans, and future career paths. And we want to continue to meet the current needs and future needs of all students because needs change as the landscape changes in our society. That was a lot of information. And there's a lot more, but if you would, take some time, scan the QR code, and it's those same questions. I'll give you some time to kind of chew on what you heard and answer some questions. And then we have one more thing to cover afterwards, which we'll be talking just in general community and culture. So if you would, please provide some feedback. All right, I appreciate everybody taking some time to give us some feedback. I think what you'll find, as part of, we're talking about school safety, caring a safe environment. It is true, students that feel connected, feel like they belong, feel like this is their community. That really is our number one line of defense, not only prevent something very bad happening at the schools, but also to prevent them from doing something harmful to themselves. The more you are connected, the more people you have, the more trusted adults you have, the more friends you have, the more you're going to be invested in your community. And we are working with our community members. As we found, we're still kind of having a return to normalcy. I think we feel like, we're through COVID, but we're still kind of figuring out how life has changed day to day. But we are seeing, as far as what our community is asking for, is getting back to school, getting back to, sometimes it's an idealistic view of how things were before, but working with the community and listening to them. Also, as a district, we're no longer growing. For so long, when I went to Lafayette, right across the street is where I grew up. It was a growing district. We are now approaching where we're kind of stabilizing. We're no longer growing. This is going to bring new challenges. So we really need to look at our resources, look at where our kids are at, and make sure we're providing equitable resources throughout the district. Also, we also need to look, as I spoke before, is focusing on Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions. We still need Tier 3 interventions, and again, that is the more intense, but we need to start spending time on, hopefully, prevention, not reacting to a crisis when it's already happened. And so we are trying to find resources and educate, hopefully, our students with those mindsets, academic mindsets and behaviors, to hopefully prevent, and won't prevent all of it. There's always going to be a need for Tier 3 interventions, but we want to also help focus on preparing our kids to hopefully handle some of those challenges. What have we accomplished so far as far as community? The Educational and Equity and Access does a wonderful job of partnering with our community. Dr. Suggs mentioned Meet Me in St. Louis. That is an outreach to all of our VIC students and making sure those families feel like they are part of our community. It is a challenge when you live so far away and your students are on a bus for an hour here and an hour back to feel like you are part of the Rockwood community. Those are our kids. Those are our families. We want to make sure they feel as such. She also mentioned about auditing building for access. We looked at all of our buildings and went through some of the Prop 3 money as far as funding and redoing our playgrounds. They will be completely accessible. Right now they are at the standards. They are the standards to be accessible for ADA, but there are better products out there, and so which are expensive. But our kids deserve, all of our kids deserve to have the equal access and enjoy playing with their friends. You may think it's trivial, but it is not. For kids to socialize, recess, to play, it's an extremely important part of their development, not only physically, but socially. I think one of the most important initiatives we began was last year. This involves around dignity and belonging. Throughout this presentation, you've heard belonging a lot. We partnered with a group led by John Cranapple, and the focus was dignity and belonging. To start or explain, because a lot of times people hear that and may not understand what it means, where it comes from. Really, it's a philosophy of this: we're all born with dignity. It's innate. Whether we feel we belong, so belonging is going to be evidence of whether we're being treated with dignity. So what this training does, and what we've been going through this process, we've been focusing at first with our teaching staff, support staff, basically the adults in the building, to see how they feel they belong to their school. Do they feel like they're being treated with dignity? This is a concerted and purposeful because we know a climate of a school starts with the adults. If the adults feel, and kids feel safe in that school, if adults feel valued and safe in that school, that is going to help kids feel they belong. It's also going to help with academic achievement. The Rockwood School District was very strategic when starting this. They looked at being very transparent with the public, talking with the school board, meeting with John Cranapple, talking through what that was going to look like. This is what, and I'll read it, just that first paragraph, because I know it's pretty far away. But here is in a nutshell what this means. One of the most essential needs we have as humans is the need for dignity and belonging in school and belonging. In schools, meeting that need activates engagement in learning and provides the platform that helps students pursue academic achievement goals. In short, dignity provides freedom for students to thrive. As educators, we can provide every student the freedom by learning to create an environment where honoring dignity is the norm. The overall result is an ecosystem within which every student and teacher can thrive. I believe that's a philosophy we can all agree with. It is hinged on Donna Hicks, who is a renowned scholar and works not only with, has several books about dignity, but has worked with people really from around the world to resolve conflict. And she really looks at these 10 pillars. I'm not going to read them all through, but these are what it means to be treated with dignity. This is what each human needs to have to thrive. And if one of these are missing, then that dignity is not being honored. So it's really looking at how people are being treated, how they're feeling. And again, we started with staff, looking at how we can address that, and coming up with strategies. It's really, it's not just asking questions and saying, I hope you feel better. It's really looking at what feedback we're getting from staff in this juncture, coming up with a plan to hopefully meet the needs of your staff in your building. Again, this was phase one, so to speak, of what we're going through. Give you time to look at the other pillars. What did this timeline look like? I know you can't read all that, especially because it's so small. I want you to see the systematic approach we've had with this and how many times not only our school board, but our community has touched and seen what we are doing. Again, we want our community to be engaged with this. We want them to know what we're doing and why it's so important. I'm very thankful for the board and their welcoming this and promoting this initiative. Again, we started with back in May of 2023, meeting with the school board. I know John Cranapple met with them and spoke with them. All of our administrators have been trained. Both summers we had a refresher course. At the end of this spring, we will have all of our schools who have gone through it. And I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And that way we're all on the same page. We're using the same language. This is an example of what our staff would be asked. Again, support, teaching, certified, non-certified. What happens is each school has a cadre, a cohort of 6 people, of teachers, support staff, and administrators. They go to this training. They learn strategies. First, they learn about dignity and belonging. They learn strategies on how to listen and to talk to people. And then we'll give a survey to their staff. This survey then is, depending on how they ask, this survey, we get the data back from them. And if you look, it's to a scale of 5. I know you see some red up here. I can tell you from all of our schools that have gone through it, we really do have good culture and climate in our schools, but there's always room to improve. Meaning the lowest score is going to show up red. So whether that lowest score is 4 or if it's 4.5, but it helps those school teams during that training go back to their schools, meet with their teams to devise a plan on how can we meet the needs of our staff. What does that also look like? They go and they actually talk to staff members. So if they identify, for instance, it's validation. Maybe you have a staff that doesn't feel like they're being recognized enough or their voices are not being heard. And so what buildings do is people on those teams go to those teachers, go to those custodians, go to those people working in nutrition and ask, when was the last time you felt valued? When was the last time you felt validated? It's really a different approach, and it's called empathy interviews, but it's really looking for a time and solutions. Because if you can find out when someone felt that way, then you can hopefully come back and decide what can we do as a school to do more of that. It's been a great process, and I can tell every school that has gone through it, everyone has gone through the training, and also the buildings that have gone through that process, it has an impact. It is having a positive impact on school culture. So the next steps, which we're moving towards, is teaching with dignity. So after our teachers and our staff and our school adults go through this training, the next step is how does that look in a classroom? So by this time, the entire certified and non-certified staff in that building will know the language, will understand the concepts. So, and then what do we need to do so if I'm teaching, what does that look like in a classroom? How do we make sure our kids, all of our kids, are treated and their dignity is honored and that they feel like they belong? So what is that evidence? And so we're going to be working with John Cranapple again next year. We're already getting the dates and deciding what the cohorts will look like. There'll be a high school, a secondary and an elementary cohort. We'll also include curriculum coordinators, because we also want to look at and make sure that our curriculum also honors all students, and they can see themselves in everything that they do. Another wonderful development we've had, I know in the years past, we've met with our faith-based groups, organizations throughout the community. There's been really a lot of movement, I would say, in this last year. A lot of interest on how to partner closer with our faith-based groups. Had a really excellent meeting last time with them. And they acknowledge, and I think we can all acknowledge this, really, schools have almost become the center of communities, where 30, 40 years ago, a lot of times it was the faith-based, whether it was a church, a synagogue, in that community. They recognize that, but they still provide lots of resources. They still can provide help. And there's always been this tension on how much we can partner with religious groups. And quite honestly, we can a lot of the services they provide, a lot of our non-religious, for lack of a better word, meaning they help provide services, they help provide, they can partner with our community, they can partner with us. So we're looking at our social workers, Jacqueline and I know Michelle, who works through drug prevention and intervention, are going to meet with some of those leaders to see how we can partner to be more of a wraparound with our community for the entire community members. So I've got 3 more questions you're used to, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. King. Again, thank you for your time and your feedback.
So as you're completing the feedback, relax, I'm not going to belt out in singing, as I'm hearing fantastic district leaders very concerned that that was going to happen. That won't be happening this evening. But did want to just provide you a bit of congratulations in the sense that we have made it in terms of we've had these focused community engagement sessions on all 4 of the identified goal areas. Now, we do have a number of strategic planning steering committee members that are with us this evening. And what we will do is in just over a week, come back and do what we've done, which is process all the data that has been provided. And there has been a significant amount of data that has been provided. So there's a lot of data to analyze, but that's what we have done. Presentation, and then an associated debriefing, and really not necessarily a vetting, but a review process of the data that has ultimately been provided. So we will go back and literally the data and feedback that's been collected since last May will be evaluated along this path and this journey that we've been engaging in. And so we're going to be working to synthesize that into actionable goals and strategies within the 4 goal areas that were discussed earlier this evening. A draft of the plan will be developed and shared with Rockwood patrons for feedback. And I'll be honest with you, that sounds like a very small leap there, but I do want the steering committee to know, but not to scare the steering committee. It's going to take some effort and some work for that work to actually be completed, but we will absolutely get there. So once that happens, the steering committee, upon receiving feedback from patrons, will revisit the plan that is based off of the feedback that our patrons will be providing, and then ultimately, the plan will be presented to our Board of Education for approval. And at this point, we're just saying sometime in spring of 2025. That is our timeline. So these will be our next steps. Lots of synthesizing, lots of analysis of a tremendous amount of data. This is a large district, and we've taken very, very big bites of huge swaths of content. And so this is what's next. I'm really looking forward to what this looks like. I have thoughts in my head, but it's not about the thoughts in my head. It's about the will of our district, our community. What's next for the Rockwood School District? So in relation to the information you reviewed this evening, what does it mean to have a safe and caring community? This is the second to last QR code reader. So if you could, just take a few moments and provide some feedback. So actually before I do that, I do want to thank every single administrator that shared information, not only this evening, but over the course of our 4 community engagement sessions. The people make the difference in any organization. It is especially true for a school district. I hope you have sensed and been able to see not only the skill and expertise, but the passion and true student-centric nature that every single administrator and staff member in this district happens to have. So thank you for taking the time to put the thought behind what you've shared with our community. It is okay for things to actually go through this iterative process. And so I'm going to play one video that will be followed by the last QR code reader for this evening. But think of what you have learned over the course of our presentations in October, November, January, again in February as well. So this is where we started with this notion of celebrating the promise in the Rockwood School District. What we want to do is to continue to figure out what does this next phase, this next season of this work and this energy in fact look like. So I want to play this video, and then we will close out with an opportunity for you to provide feedback off of what you've seen based off of what we have experienced.
This year I promised myself to be the most successful student that I can in the classroom. It's important to set promises like that just so you know you can achieve your full potential in the classroom. These teachers are pouring out numerous hours of their time to us.
This year in my classroom, my promise is to teach with passion. I hope to bring everything that I've learned over the course of my tenure here, and then all of those things that I continue to learn, and bring those into the classroom and give my students that ability to thrive in their own personal strengths and talents so that they can find the passion in learning every day.
The best way to summarize my promise this year is to instill hope in others, to make everybody feel more comfortable this year, and to have a goal at the end of this year to be more of a collective unit.
My promise is kind of like, I do kind of want to keep up my GPA. To do that, I will stay strong and focused during the school year. But I also want to keep a positive attitude to my friends all the time and always be kind.
I promised myself that I will get better in math because I want to be an engineer. I'm going to listen to my teacher and take everything that I can take in, and I also want to have a little bit of fun while I'm at it.
What I promised the Rockwood School District this year is that we are going to continue to work to meet the needs of each and every one of our learners, every one of our students, every single day. The needs of students, the holistic needs of students, not just academic, but the needs of students has to be our priority. The students are the reason we have a school district. So as we think about this journey, this continual journey that we're on, if you would provide some feedback via the QR code about our promise. I will let you continue to close out, and I will just say, because I know we are recording, it's a pleasure, a true honor to be a part of this team. I look forward to what comes as a result of this work, and hope that everyone has a great and safe close to this evening. And we look forward to this next step in conversation when it comes to our strategic plan. Thank you for being here, and thank you for what you do.